Welcome to another episode of Take 5. My name is Chase Drossos. I'm a senior manager at Mazars. I focus on the energy infrastructure and environment group, where I contribute to our advisory consulting and audit practice. I'm joined here today by Alain Fouraux, Master of Architecture and Design. Alain has a really impressive background and portfolio of projects around the globe. And most recently, actually, he started up a company in Rotterdam called Fix. And this is a company developed for environmentally friendly housing and furniture. And it's really exciting. Excited to hear more about it, but before we get to some questions, I'll turn it over to Alain to introduce himself and his story.
Hi. So thanks very much for the invite. I just mentioned apologies for the background. In the context of the Corona crisis, I've been banned to work at home, and unfortunately in my temporary office in the garage, which is also not heated, hence my warm outfit. Yeah, thanks for inviting me. I'm very glad to introduce you to what we're doing with Fix. As you mentioned, I have a background in architecture. I worked for 18 years at the office of Rem Koolhaas OMA and did about 60 projects all over the globe, mainly in the US, Europe, and Asia, with a focus on China. And in that context, I had a great opportunity to kind of look at the epical of innovation in architecture and what's going on and where the focus is. And to my surprise, there is very little focus on recent opportunities in technologies that allow us to build symbiotically and to make our houses regenerative, circular, and energy neutral. There's a lot of focus on catering elite clients with demands that absorb a lot of innovation and engineering, which actually does not contribute at all to the benefit of our environment. And that was something that when I was coming at a crossroads of getting close to 50 years, was starting to really bother me. And at some point it made me decide to try to see if I can put the focus on push innovation in that direction. And that was basically what the birth of Fix was about.
That's really great. I mean, it sounds like you were definitely inspired to use a lot of your specialty and your background to really do something that's bigger than just developing a company for profitability. But maybe just to dive into that a little bit, what do you see as the need or the push for, from consumers, and how do you think they would be responding or will respond to sustainable development in terms of their housing and their furniture? And what do you think the consumer base is able to make maybe sacrifices or changes in their lifestyles now to really move to do something that's more more sustainable in the global picture?
Absolutely. From a consumer point of view, there is a very interesting separation between everything you consume and your house. With everything you consume nowadays, from your coffee to your Nikes to your car, you can decide into the greatest detail what you want. You can specify your car, you can specify the color of the stitches, you can specify the ingredients of your coffee, you can specify the color of your Nikes, but you cannot do anything of that with your house, which is the biggest expenditure that you make in your life. And you usually buy, when it's considered a newly constructed house, you buy it from a rendering, from a picture, and you start paying actually several years in advance of it being offered to you, which is something that basically means that you cannot compare you know, what you're choosing or what you're buying. At least that's how real estate works in Europe.
Mhm.
And from a consumer's perspective, that is in the age we live in, that's insanity. But also the construction process itself is hasn't caught up with the way we are able to cater consumers. You know, if you compare real estate to automotive, for instance, and the liberty you have in choosing exactly what you want, but not only that, the revolution the industry made in terms of becoming environmentally friendly, you know, going from a combustion to electrically driven cars is very remote from the innovation that the construction industry has made, because everything there is still the same as it was 5 decades ago, pretty much. And that is actually what Fix is all about, in a way. We want to, first of all, industrialize the way we make housing, and do that very much comparable to the automotive industry works and the construction industry works. And with that, we are able to make an enormous leap forward in the way we deal with environmentally friendly building. It will allow us to build CO2 negative. It will allow us to make energy neutral houses in the exact same price realm as we are now making pollutive houses that consume a lot of energy. So it's a combination of those two factors. Of, you know, it's about time for, at least when we're talking about housing, for architecture to make that leap into the age of industrialization.
Yeah, that's really amazing. I'm US based, and you know, there are developments. You know, where I live in a pretty congested part of New York, but you know, the developments that are going up are, like you were sort of mentioning earlier, they're trying to comply with, you know, building codes as they are, and you know, this construction is really trying to build affordable housing with not too much what seems like consideration for environmental sustainability, or any of these concepts for you know, building a house that's more than just a low cost, you know, development project. Having a bigger picture, like you're mentioning, would be game changing if some of these large development companies could start transitioning into what you're discussing. So Alan, I think the other thing would be great to understand a little bit more about the Fix process, the production. I know you mentioned earlier that the actual production and or pre-construction is done in a controlled environment, since in a facility. And I'm just curious to understand what are the benefits of that, and how does that translate, you know, into the construction phase when you're actually going on site to place the house.
Okay, so I think maybe the best metaphor to use is the automotive. And you know, at the moment, you have to imagine that with current regulation and customer expectations, we want a house to perform really well, to have a good energy performance. It is awkward if you say to somebody, I just bought a new Tesla and there's a couple of guys in the field over there that are putting it together. You know, that is not going to give you the quality product that we want to have today. And something similar is going on with our houses. You know, it's just simply much easier and predictable and better for all stakeholders if we do that in a factory, in a controlled environment, and not exposed to the elements where, you know, one day it can be 40 degrees, as you know, in New York, and the other day it can be freezing cold. You know, that is really what construction workers are exposed to. That is number one that we think should change. So we think that prefabrication is the solution, but not only for the construction process, also for the consumer. You know, buying a house is the biggest expenditure that you make in your life. And you know, when you buy a car, you want to make a test drive. We think that something similar should be going on when you buy a house. you should be knowing what you're getting into, and it should be a luxury process where you actually enjoy the specification and know what you're going to get, instead of a stressful process where you're worried about schedules, about finances, about cost. Is it all going to come together? That is, in essence, what we want to do with Fix. And in the slipstream of that, we believe that that's totally possible to make the leap forward, to build energy neutral, to build circular, and to build also carbon neutral.
That's a really interesting concept. And, I'm seeing just based on some of your response, I see a lot of, you're doing comparison with the auto industry, which is very interesting and tangible. And the whole just construction aspect is also very interesting. The fact that, and I know we've done some discussions previously about how the construction is actually more precise, and the timelines are more precise. So I work a lot with long-term contracts and construction type contracts, and always, I won't say always, but many times the biggest concern is overruns and timing. And like you mentioned, if the weather is bad in a winter in the US, it delays the whole project and there's overruns. It sounds like, the concepts that you're developing with Fix are solutions for a lot of the challenges that are normally around for construction, which is really, really cool. And something that, as a consumer, it would be great if you pick a house after your test drive, and then all of a sudden, a month later or 2 months later, it's ready to go with all the bells and whistles. That's a really interesting concept, and probably something also that current society is really looking forward to, knowing that we have these, short attention spans and we're a little impatient. So not only is it, Fix really addressing sustainability, but also it seems like it's really addressing customers' wants and needs at the same time.
Exactly. Perhaps the most important thing is we all need a planet to live on. And if we want to have a comfortable life, we all need a house. And if we have a construction industry that is basically responsible for 30% of all CO2 emissions, then we have a contradicting situation, because it's not sustainable. Everybody deserves a house, and not everybody has one yet. Far from everybody has one. And once everybody will have one, with the way we are currently doing things, we will not have a planet to live on anymore. So something has to imminently change. And what we're doing is not rocket science. And we are a small company, and we hope that there are like-minded startups already, and we hope many others will follow, because the world has an opportunity to change this right here and right now. And we have an alternative that we should seize, and basically building with wood, with CLT. If we have a right plantation kind of policy, will allow us to make housing in a regenerative way. And there are more than enough energy solutions to also make energy neutral houses. So it is within hand reach. It's all about if we want it or not.
That's great. Really exciting project, Alain. And I think we're running a little bit almost out of time here. So maybe if you could just leave us with some final thought, and maybe something that's a little bit looking forward. So into 2021, 2022, where do you see Fix, and how do you see Fix fitting into our culture and society over the next couple of years, in that, how will it merge with the current mindsets of consumers and society in terms of our wants and needs for sustainability? So maybe just something forward-looking to leave us with on this episode.
Yeah, so well, I would say in general, as humanity, I think we're at a crossroads where we, first of all, have to decide if we keep on pursuing the economic system of perpetual growth, or if we're going to make a new system where we say, you know, there is a period of development and there's a period where we are at, you know, sustainability, where enough is enough. And then we just continue to stay the same and have a good economy. Because, you know, we are first and foremost in a system that is closed with a certain amount of resources, while we are pushing economies that, you know, stimulate infinite consumerism and without actually considering those resources. That is the first thing that has to change. And in the segment of the construction industry, there are countless technologies that we can apply to make an enormous leap forward towards that target. That we are not seizing those opportunities because it is held hostage by the old system. That's simply what it is. And I think consumers should stand up because they are basically in a horrible position if you compare it to everything else they consume in their life and the demands that they have over there. And when it comes to buying their house or their property, they're in a horrible position. But also the industries should stand up, and the government, as you say, talking about policies should stand up and make much more stringent regulations when it comes to, you know, the cost of CO2 emissions. You know, in Holland at the moment, I think for 1 ton of CO2, it's quantified to 18 euros, which is ridiculous and doesn't give them any incentive to make change at all. So there's a lot that they can do in stimulating them towards making their economies more sustainable.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you very much, Alan. We really appreciated having you on today, and very interesting. We're very excited to go into the future with all this in mind. So thank you very much, and hope to see you soon.
Mutual. Thank you very much as well.
Chase, can you make a